Hi everyone. So after English Civil War period or the period of King Charles I, the next period that we have in the history of English literature is Restoration period. Restoration period from 1660 to 1700. And why is this period called Restoration period? How did the term restoration come into being? We'll talk about this in the very beginning, and later on we'll be discussing about literature and other forms of arts that were prominent, because restoration period is full of you can say different kinds of arts, and different forms of arts are being flourished during this period. So from your point of view, from the point of view of your exam and literature, this period is really remarkable. We have to understand very clearly. While talking about English Civil War period, we discussed how King Charles I was beheaded, and for what what were the reasons behind his execution, and we have learned about it in the last video. I'm not going to repeat them. So this King Charles I had a son called King Charles II. Restoration period is all about how King Charles II restored the throne of England. What happened is, this King Charles I, as I said, King Charles I had two sons, King Charles II and James II. Please understand, try to understand this very properly, otherwise it will make confusion, because it will create confusion, because from James I we have Charles I, and from Charles I we have King Charles II and James II. We'll be talking about James II later. Now we are talking about King Charles II, the son of King Charles I. So after King Charles I was beheaded, his son Charles II exiled to France. And Restoration period is all about how King Charles II came back to England. Actually, he didn't come back on his own. He was invited. When Oliver Cromwell failed to control the situation of England, and people were actually in need of a real king, 12 members of the parliament went to France and invited King Charles II to take his position, you can say. So after Puritan interregnum ended and the monarchy was restored under King Charles II, that is King Charles I's exiled son, and this period is called Restoration period. And what happened, what the significance, most significant incidents that happened is, during this period, or when King Charles II came back to England, theatre was reopened. You heard how theatre was banned in 1642. With Charles II, theatre was reopened. Why? This King Charles II was really a liberal man and of free thoughts. He never wanted to restrict art and literature in this way, the way his ancestors did. So with his return, theatre also reopened, and not with a whimper, but with a bang, to quote Eliot. So and with him, you can say Church of England was also restored as the national church, and besides this, two political parties were formed. Very important, two political parties. Number one, the Whigs, and number two, the Tories. The Whigs were more liberal kind of people. They were more, you can say, liberal in their approach, and the Tories were more conservative. These are the two political parties that were formed during this time. Now, as I was talking about King Charles II, he was actually a liberal sort of person. He used to have a very, you can say, luxurious and hedonistic life. That is why he is called the Merry King, also the Merry Monarch, the Merry Monarch. Now you have to understand, although this King Charles II was a liberal kind of person, of course he favored the policy of religious tolerance, but he was secretly a Catholic king. He secretly favored Catholicism, and and which, of course, the Parliament couldn't accept. What happened for that reason? As he favored the Catholics, the Test Act of 1673 was passed, and meanwhile, in 1678, there was a rumor of popish plot. It was actually a rumor, and as popish plot turned out later to be fictitious, it fanned, you can say, a sort of anti-Catholicism, anti-Catholic hysteria throughout England, and which finally led to exclusion crisis or exclusion bill. This exclusion bill or exclusion crisis is very important. We have to understand it very clearly. Okay, so as I said, this King Charles II was, you can say, a liberal-minded person. He used to have lots of fun, full of masti in his life, you can say. So lots of fun. What happened as a result? This King Charles II had no legitimate son. Why? Because his wife Catherine had several miscarriages. Therefore, he didn't have any legitimate son. So after him, who could be the king? Who could be the next successor of English throne? This was under a big question. So the next one who was there in the line was, of course, his brother, King James II. That means Charles I's one son was Charles II, and as Charles II had no heir, therefore the only option left was King James II. Here there a problem arose. What? Because the two political parties about whom we have discussed few minutes ago, these two political parties opined differently. The Whigs, who were very liberal in their approach, what did they do? They wanted the illegitimate son of King Charles II to be the next king. That is Duke of Monmouth. Duke of Monmouth is the illegitimate son of King Charles II. On the other side, the Tories, who were more conservative, they wanted to be Catholic. They wanted only, you can say, they wanted only royal blood as the next successor. They didn't, although it's okay that King James II is a Catholic. That's not the problem. Because he is of royal blood, and that is the main reason why they accepted him, even James II. Instead of knowing that this James II is a Catholic, they said it's okay, no problem, let it be, let him be a Catholic. We want only royal blood. No commoners will come to English throne. They couldn't accept this. They never wanted any common person to be, or any illegitimate son to be the next successor. So what happened? The Whigs wanted Duke of Monmouth, the illegitimate son of King Charles II, to be the next successor, and the Tories wanted King James II, that is, King James II, King Charles II's brother, to be the next successor. So a problem arose. The reason why the Whigs didn't support King James II to be the next successor, because there was another reason behind this. Because King James II was a Catholic, and the Whigs were Protestants. So the Protestant Whigs never wanted Catholic James II to be the king. And also, therefore, a problem arose, as I have mentioned, a problem definitely arose. So what happened then? On 1679, the Whigs under Earl of Shaftesbury and Duke of Buckingham introduced the Exclusion Bill, as about which I was talking a few minutes ago. So the Whigs introduced this Exclusion Bill in the House of Commons. What is this Exclusion Bill? This Exclusion Bill talks about excluding Catholics from inheriting English throne. This Exclusion Bill is all about excluding Catholics from inheriting the English Church. And who introduced it? The Whigs. who were Protestants. The Protestant Whigs introduced this. So what happened then, as a result of this exclusion bill, under the, you can say, leadership of Anthony Ashley Cooper or Earl of Shaftesbury, this bill was introduced to the Parliament, and in order to be passed, this bill had to go through two different, it had to be passed in two different parts. First, the House of Commons, and second, the House of Lords. But what happened is, although this bill was passed in the House of Commons, this bill could not pass in the House of Lords, where Tories predominated. The conservative Tories predominated, therefore this bill could not be passed, and it was rejected there. So what happened as a result, after such a tumultuous process, King James II, James II, the brother of Charles II, came into power, became the successor of English Shaftesbury, that means Earl of Shaftesbury, the leader of the Whigs of that time, of execution bill. This Anthony Ashley Cooper, he was imprisoned, but later on he got released from the jail, and when he was released, all his followers did one thing: they wore a medal on which the picture or the photo of Shaftesbury was inscribed. They all wore a medal, and they started glorifying this Earl of Shaftesbury. And this is noteworthy that our John Dryden mocked these people, because Dryden was a Tory. Dryden was a Catholic from his heart. So when Shaftesbury was released and his followers started glorifying him by wearing the medal, Dryden couldn't accept it. He wrote a very satiric very satiric work called The Medal. That we'll be talking later. We'll be talking about literature. We'll talk about it. And Dryden also wrote. Dryden was a Tory, as I said. Dryden also wrote Absalom and Achitophel. The main theme of Absalom and Achitophel is completely is on this exclusion bill. If you understand this exclusion bill properly and what happened, you will understand Absalom and Achitophel. Otherwise, it is difficult and it is impossible to comprehend Absalom and Achitophel. Now that you know how James II came into power in England, and how he succeeded English throne, how he became the next successor after King Charles II, you'll be surprised that even during the period of King James II, during this age, people were not happy. They could not live liberally, because what happened, James II was a Catholic, and people of England were disturbed and devastated by the Catholics. They could not accept him anymore. They wanted Protestant. They were in, you can say, great need of a Protestant king. They could not tolerate these Catholics anymore. So what happened after James II? They decided that James II's son, if James II's son again comes to power, he is also Catholic. Therefore, the condition will remain the same. The condition of Protestants will remain the same. Therefore, they decided that not his son, rather King James II's daughter, that is Mary II, and her husband, that is James II's son-in-law William III, will be the next successor. And this William III and Mary II were Protestants. That's why they wanted them to be next successor. So this incident, when Mary II and William III, they are becoming the ruler of England. This incident is called the Glorious Revolution of 1688. Very important. So after James II, not his son, rather his daughter and his son-in-law are becoming the ruler, are coming to power over England, are getting the power of England. So this period is called glorious revolution. And after Merida II died, William III continued ruling over England, and after him, James II's another daughter, that is Anne. Anne became the next successor. So she continued ruling over England for a long time. So by now you know much about the political condition of this period. And now let us talk about the literature and art that were prominent during Restoration period. So Restoration period was full of French influence. Why French influence? Because you remember that King Charles II came from France, and when King Charles II came to England from France, therefore naturally he brought many such French influence to England, and which finally contributed to the art and literature of Restoration period. So Restoration period, the most prominent style was in Restoration period, the most prominent style was Baroque art, Baroque style. This was a brilliant dramatic style in art, and which later on influenced Milton also. You remember Milton's Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, all are coming in this during this period, and these are all influenced by some way or the other from Baroque style of art. And if you remember that during Renaissance period, what was the influence? It was Italian influence. On the other hand, during Restoration period, we find this French influence. You have to keep it in mind. So and also another important thing is scientific development. During Restoration period, scientific developments are happening, and we see Bacon's Solomon House, where he gave the idea of a college, and based on these later on the Royal Society was established in 1662. So this Restoration period was all about scientific development, was all about developing society, French influence, and also aristocratic life that were becoming very strong. And this aristocratic life later on gave birth to Restoration comedy. Right? Restoration comedy was full of aristocracy. So now that we are talking about comedy, we should talk about other forms or other genres of literature that were prominent. Restoration poetry, first of all. Restoration poetry was not that popular because of its immorality. It was full of immoral immoral thoughts. So Restoration poetry was not that popular. Next we have Restoration prose. This was you can say a modern style of prose, and in the hands of the writers like Dryden, Restoration prose became very prominent and very you can say important. And besides this, criticism also became important. You remember Dryden's works on criticism. So criticism was also was very significant during Restoration period. Next we have drama, Restoration drama. This is the most, you can say, prominent genre in literature. There was a floodgate of drama that was opened during this time. You remember how after 1642 drama was completely banned. Therefore, when King Charles II returns to England, and with him, you can say different forms of literature and also drama is coming. For example, it was why it was so prominent, why drama or play was so prominent. It was all because of the Puritan interregnum, because of the repression that drama had to face during the Puritan interregnum. So Restoration period drama was very popular and very important. We have Restoration comedy first. In drama we have Restoration comedy first. So what is Restoration comedy? Comedy was all about aristocratic lifestyle. These dramas used to portray the aristocratic lifestyle and luxurious lifestyle, and also you can say the upper class people, how were their lifestyle. It was all about these people. Restoration drama was not Restoration comedy was all about this. it is also called, you can say, comedy of manners, right? And it is important to note here that our Jeremy Collier attacked this kind of comedy of manners because of its immorality, because of its portrayal of such immoral things in drama. So Jeremy Collier attacked restoration. What is this? Restoration comedy. Yes. Next we have sentimental comedy. It was actually the middle class reaction against restoration comedy. Restoration comedy was full of aristocracy, and on the other side, sentimental comedy was all about middle class people. It portrayed the lifestyle of middle class people. And another thing that was also prominent was heroic poems. And who was the prominent figure, was the most important figure for this? Our Dryden. Dryden was writing during this period, as I have mentioned earlier also, and he was famous for these heroic dramas. So what was this heroic drama all about? These heroic dramas were all about the heroic achievements or the great achievements of the warriors. Okay, it was written in the style of epic, you can say. And Dryden's, you remember Dryden's All for Love? It was modeled on Antony and Cleopatra. This All for Love is also considered as a heroic drama. Okay, so this heroic drama was also mocked by somebody called Duke of Buckingham. We talked about him during our discussion on this exclusion bill, right? So Buckingham attacked Dryden for writing this kind of dramas, this heroic dramas, and he made fun of him in his play The Rehearsal. The Rehearsal, we see that Duke of Buckingham is making fun of these heroic dramas of our Dryden. So Restoration comedy finally came to an end with the licensing order of 1737, and as a result, as a reaction of sentimental comedy, we later on see that there was anti-sentimental comedy, and the writers who were writing this anti-sentimental comedy are like Sheridan or Goldsmith, right? We see these writers to be prominent for writing anti-sentimental comedy. And who were the people who were writing sentimental comedy? For example, William Congreve. We see Etheridge. William Congreve's The Way of the World was very popular, was very important work during this time, which is published in 1700. And we see Colley Cibber and also George Farquhar. Now, any discussion on Restoration period remains incomplete if we do not talk about Dryden, right? As I mentioned earlier also, Dryden was a Tory. He was a Tory supporter, and you remember Exclusion Bill? The incident that happened during that time, how during Exclusion Bill, two different sets of ideas became prominent. On the one hand, there was King Charles II and his brother James II, and also our Dryden, who is supporting them. And on the other hand, there was James II, the illegitimate son of not James II, actually Duke of Monmouth, the illegitimate son of Charles II, and also Earl of Shaftesbury, who was supporting them. These two set of believers were there, and Dryden was actually on the side of whom? Was actually protecting the James II, right? He was writing for James II. So during the Exclusion Bill, or the Exclusion Crisis, he wrote Absalom and Achitophel. So what was the theme of Absalom and Achitophel? It was a political allegory, right? It was a political allegory, and Dryden is writing this Absalom and Achitophel drawing from the Old Testament story of King David being rebelled with his own son Absalom with the help of Ahithophel. And similarly, like that King Charles II, his own illegitimate son, Duke of Monmouth, is rebelling with the help of Earl of Shaftesbury. So Earl of Shaftesbury is compared to Ahithophel, and what he is doing, what Dryden is doing in Absalom and Ahithophel, he is actually mocking, he is actually attacking Shaftesbury or Ahithophel. So he used certain phrases like if you read Absalom and Ahithophel, you will see that this poem is full of mockery and satire that he made against Shaftesbury. I don't know how Shaftesbury managed to live after this much of attack. So there is a line when he is saying that King Charles II, he is talking about in the beginning of the poem, he is talking about the promiscuity of King Charles II. He is saying that yes, our King Charles II had no legitimate son because of the different miscarriages that his wife had. But don't worry, although he doesn't have any legitimate son, this entire country, entire England is full of his illegitimate sons. Much attack he made on Charles II and specifically on Earl of Shaftesbury, right? And also rebel. We have talked about it a few minutes ago that after Shaftesbury was released from jail, how his followers owed this medal, and Dryden made fun of them and wrote a brilliant piece called The Medal, right? It was published in 1682. And also he wrote Macflecknoe, which is also a satirical work. And we see other works of Dryden like Alexander's Feast, Religio Laici, the Hind and the Panther, and also dramatic poems, as we mentioned earlier, also All for Love. And one of the most important things, one of the most important contributions of Dryden to English literature is in criticism, right? He is called the father of criticism. Dr. Dryden called him, Dr. Johnson called Dryden to be the father of criticism. You remember his work, an essay on dramatic poesy, an essay of dramatic poesy, which was published in 1668. It was a very prominent work. And along with Dryden, we have other writers like Nahum Tate, and we also have Wycherley, we have John Etheredge, we have William Congreve, whose famous work is The Way of the World, 1700. It was published in 1700. And in this period, in this Restoration period, we find somebody called Aphra Behn, who is considered to be the first English woman who took writing as profession, who was the first professional English authoress, right? Aphra Behn. Aphra Behn's famous works are like Oroonoko. And also we have Eliza Haywood, other writers, and John Bunyan, whose The Pilgrim's Progress was very popular in this period and also now. So this was all about Restoration period and Restoration drama and the political condition, the cultural situation of Restoration period. And we have discussed about Restoration drama in a brief manner. Restoration comedy is actually a vast genre. So I have tried to talk about it in a nutshell. And next we have Augustan period, Augustan poetry and prose. We'll talk about that later in next video. So thank you for now.